Akili Smith, drafted 3rd overall in 1999 to the Cincinnati Bengals, is often referred to as one of the biggest busts in NFL history, arguably top 3 from the quarterback standpoint, arguably top 2 in Cincinnati Bengals franchise history. Coming from a Bengals fan, that does seem like a lot. Although Akili Smith is the main one being criticized for his failures in the professional level, how much of it does actually fall on him? And how much of it does fall on the organization itself? Today we are looking at the underwhelming career of Akili Smith. Hey guys, this is something new that I'm trying on the channel. It is the start of my What Happened To series, where I do try to take a professional athlete who had much promise, who had everything going for them, and maybe for one reason or another their career or their trajectory did not pan out how any of us probably envisioned. So I wanted to start off with one that hits close to home, as if you guys don't know by now, I am a huge Bengals fan, and with so many draft busts that we have had, it's crazy to think that this man is in the top 2. If you guys do like this sort of thing, definitely hit that like, subscribe button. I hope you guys sit back and enjoy as we talk about the career of Akili Smith. Kabisa Akili Smith was born in 1975, San Diego, California, to Gloria Bryant and Ray Smith. As any kid growing up, you wanted to make your dreams come true and play in the NFL. Akili Smith, he was no different. For high school, Akili Smith attended Abraham Lincoln, where in one tryout, not only was he on the team, he was actually the starter. Assistant coach Tony Jackson quoted, "He threw one pass and I said to coach, we know who the quarterback is." I don't know how much he exaggerated or if he exaggerated at all, but if you just need one pass to tell people you're gonna be the quarterback, you're doing something right. After high school, he did attend community college at Grossmont for 2 years before transferring to Oregon in 1998. In 1998, Akili went off. In 11 starts, he threw for 3,763 yards, which until 2014 was a school record. To go along with that, he also threw for 32 touchdowns and ran for another 4. He also had a completion percentage of 58%, something that, isn't great, but from a college standpoint, it's something you can absolutely improve on. Overall, he did finish averaging 321 yards passing, was 2nd All-American honors, and he was also Pac-10 Co-Offensive Player of the Year. These are some serious accolades for a man who absolutely deserved it. In 11 starts to accomplish all of that, that is absolutely amazing. Moving away from Akili Smith, we need to focus on the team who drafted him in 1999. The Bengals in the 90s were some of the worst teams of all time. In the 90s overall, no one actually had more losses than them. Then that is actually saying something. I'm sure they're getting torched behind me as we speak. So, they couldn't stop a thing. The Bengals in 1998 were abysmal to say the least, finishing 3-13, somehow only getting the 3rd overall pick. They were dead last on defense, and on offense, at best, they were below average. That's just an exemplary of the 90s, as the Bengals over the past 8 seasons to this point had never won more than 5 games. As bad as they were seeing Akili light it up in college. And you know what? They said, this is our guy. This is the man we want to lead us into the future. He's gonna lead us into the new millennium, and we will never be called the Bengals again. If you're wondering why I'm saying all of that, if you guys recall, Mike Ditka made an infamous trade where he traded damn near 7-8 picks to the Washington football team. Needless to say, Mike Ditka was fired soon thereafter. The reason I'm saying all of this, the Saints and Mike Ditka actually offered the Bengals pretty much the same trade. But you know what? The Bengals said, nah, Akili Smith's our guy. Akili Smith is better than having 10 more draft picks. If you really truly believe in somebody, like if you had the opportunity to pick Brady knowing what he was going to accomplish, yeah, you're not gonna trade for even 10, 11, 12 picks, right? But we do fast forward. Akili Smith is drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals with the 3rd overall pick, going after the likes of Tim Couch and Donovan McNabb. A little after he got drafted, Akili Smith actually held out due to a contract dispute. Where have I seen that before? Akili Smith holdout actually went into training camp and covered all of it. Basically, he had no training camp in his rookie campaign. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to think that if you're a rookie, even with a full weeks of prepping with your teammates and getting everything set, you're still a ways to go. You're still very behind. Who's to say that those 3 weeks couldn't have been crucial to Akili Smith's development? They were crucial. I'm sure they were crucial to his development. And people want to talk about the holdout. Well, you know, as a Bengals fan, I know that, you know, we don't like giving out big contracts. If they were really trying to lowball him, I mean, that is one way you gotta look at it. You know, I couldn't find anything about the contract dispute, if they really were trying to lowball him or he was just trying to like hold them. What we know is he held out, it cost him training camp, and obviously the rest. He did eventually sign a contract and he was officially signed to the Cincinnati Bengals, and we were all set and ready to go. In 1999, to start it off, Jeff Blake was the starting quarterback, led by head coach Bob Coslet and offensive coordinator Ken Anderson. By the way, if you don't know who Ken Anderson is, one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback of all time in Bengals history. Guess he couldn't coordinate though. Akili didn't actually get any action until, well, week 2, where Jeff Blake did go down in the first half and Akili did step in. Even though he did step in rather early, the Bengals still found a way to already be losing 28-7. Akili, with almost no training camp and already being a rookie, he did flounder a little bit, throwing 10 for 17 for 100 yards and an interception. And he was also sacked 2 times, a theme that is going to be very, very prominent in his career, getting sacked. So the Bengals did lose 34-7 to the Jim Harbaugh-led Chargers, but you know what? Akili got his feet wet and he did get his first taste of NFL experience. Akili Smith does get some time in week 4 to play, going 7 of 18 for 77 yards and interception, but on the flip side, he did run for 1 touchdown. So he did get his first ever points in his career, but the Bengals would go on to lose, and after week 4, they are officially 0-4. Jeff Blake does get benched, and guess who is there to take over? It is Akili Smith's time to shine, and he plays against the Cleveland Browns, the very new Cleveland Browns, because as you remember, they were an expansion in 1999. Akili Smith actually does pretty well. This is a game that showed his promise. He went 25 of 42 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, albeit he did get sacked 4 times. The Bengals actually go on to win 18-17. Akili's first start actually does a very good for a rookie, and he actually gets the Bengals their first win. Just in one game, you think the Bengals already won this. Like, they won the non-Mike Ditka trade. Honestly, that was the high point of his NFL career. His first start, and it's the only time he ever scored multiple touchdowns in one game ever again. As in week 6 against Pittsburgh, he got knocked back down to earth hard, going 19 of 38, a 50% completion rate for 200 yards, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble. The Bengals did lose that game, but you know what? It's not that bad. It sounds like a rookie who's just starting out. It's normal. It happens. They have games like that. In week 7 against the Colts, Akili gets sacked 5 times in the first half and injures his right leg and leaves the game. He did finish with 122 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but 5 sacks. Akili Smith was asked what went wrong on offense, and this was his response. Now pay attention to this, because they asked the question to both the quarterback and the O-line. To me personally, it's a little telling.
Maybe I got to get rid of the ball quicker, or maybe the linemen aren't doing a good job. I don't know. We got to get it figured out on film. And
we didn't play well. I think Akili didn't pick up a couple blitzes. He should get rid of the ball on cues, but bottom line is we didn't get the job done.
That's just not a good look. The team's out of sync. I know that everyone's frustrated. You can see the cracks already starting to begin, and he is just in his rookie campaign. It's these little moments that I want to take into account. This is a man that already got sacked 5 times. Although he was hurt, he did come back the next week. In week 8 against the Jags, he threw for a paltry 67 yards, 2 interceptions, and was sacked another 4 times. After getting sacked another 4 times against the Jaguars in the very next game, Akili Smith was actually done for the year. So in 1999, the 3rd overall pick finished his rookie campaign going 80 for 153, a 52.3 completion percentage, throwing for 805 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 6 interceptions, earning him a passer rating of 55.6 and a 1-3 record. And the Bengals do finish at 4-12. To kind of recap that season, Akili Smith did show his promise. He was just flinging that football. He had no fear in his eyes. He was just slinging it. But after that first game, defenses caught up to him. They knew how to play him. He was a rookie. He was a rookie who didn't have training camp. He was playing for the Bengals, who in the 90s were just... Overall, even though the defense did get a little bit better, the offense did actually take a step forward, but not because of the passing game. Their offense finished actually 15th, but the passing finished 23rd. A very promising start did derail thanks to injuries. Who knows what could have been. Again, it's just more time that Akili missed, starting with training camp, then getting injured. As a rookie, it's already hard to adjust to an NFL level. It's a lot harder too when you can't get on the field. Now in the offseason, the Bengals were still committed to Akili. With the 4th overall pick, they did draft wide receiver Peter Warrick, and also in the 3rd round, they did draft another wide receiver in Ron Duggins. Now with a full training camp, now with your new weapons, 1 year under your belt, maybe things are gonna turn around. Maybe that one game was not just a fluke. Maybe the real Akili Smith is gonna come out and ball out. There's still hope. So we go ahead and fast forward to the 2000 season. The Bengals actually had a week 1 bye. In case you're wondering why they had a week 1 bye, when the Browns came back in 1999, there were 31 teams. So clearly you can't play yourself. So unfortunately, one team had to always have a week 1 bye until the Texans came around in 2002. The Bengals unfortunately were that one team who had the week 1 bye. And let me just say, playing 16 straight games without a break in between, that has got to be hard. There's no time for your injuries to heal up. There's no time for your coaches to regroup, think of a strategy long term. There's nothing like that. So this was a tough campaign for the Bengals, but we'll never know exactly how much of a difference this actually made. The Bengals didn't take the field until week 2 against the Browns, where they got pummeled 24-7. Akili Smith, returning from an ankle injury that sidelined him for the rest of the season in 1999, comes back throwing 15 of 43 with a completion percentage of 34%. Now, in those 15 completions, he did actually get 259 yards. So you know my boy was just throwing it down the field. My 2 biggest takeaways is his completion percentage and the fact that he got sacked 7 times. That is not what you want to see out of your young quarterback who had his season ended because he just could not get protected. I want you guys to pay attention to this. He's going against the Browns. The Browns who had the number 1 overall pick and Akili Smith's counterpart, Tim Couch. Akili struggled. Tim Couch was at this point on the right path. He had finished 19 of 31, throwing for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Not bad for a second year's first game. At this point, you'd think they're heading in 2 different directions. Another thing I want you guys to remember is those 7 points that the Bengals scored in week 1. As we fast forward to week 3, the Bengals' second game, the Jaguars come to visit Cincinnati. The Bengals lose 0-13. They do get shut out. Although the defense kind of held their own against this powerhouse that is the Jaguars, who were pretty dangerous at this point, led by Mark Brunell. Held them to 13 points. So the defense actually did its job on this game. Unfortunately, the completion percentage and the sacks do get the best of Akili again. Akili finishes 18 of 41. That is a 43% completion rate, 183 yards, 2 interceptions, 5 sacks. After getting your season ended because you were just getting pummeled, and for it to continue, what toll is that taking on this young man at this point? I'm sure his confidence is shaken. After that one high of beating the Browns last year, he is getting his ass kicked. Unfortunately for the Bengals, the worst is yet to come, as next week they do play the Ravens, and in their own home field, not only do they get shut down again, they lose 37-0. And actually, I need to take a moment. I need to explain everything that went down in this game, because a lot of things changed after this game. Keep in mind, this is to the year 2000. That is a dangerous Baltimore Ravens defense. So it makes sense why you got shut out, but at the end of the day, the stats that I'm about to read, they take a toll on your team. And it took the toll on somebody specific so much that they just quit on the team. The Bengals in this entire game had less than 100 yards of offense. The rushing game, non-existent. They had 4 yards. Corey Dillon himself on 12 carries had 9 yards. He had 1 carry that was 9 yards. That should tell you how the rest of his rushes went. This doesn't really fall too much on Akili Smith because he did not play much. He threw 1 pass for 8 yards, was sacked twice, and he was knocked out of the game. By the time Akili Smith was out of the game, the Bengals were outmatched in yards, only mustering 31 compared to Baltimore's 238 at this point. After the game, Akili does take an interview and says, "I just remember getting hit and laying on the ground, seeing stars." If you saw the video, he got hit hard and almost immediately, and the offensive line was just decimated. Almost in an instant, the Ravens were in the backfield. I'm just imagining being a part of the Bengals offense and you are just getting swarmed play after play after play. When I talked about Akili Smith's confidence being shaken, at this point, it's beyond shaken. After the game, Coach Bruce Coslet actually steps down from operations. Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinator, is now officially the interim head coach. This game was so bad, guys, that the head coach stepped down. He didn't even get fired. He stepped down. He gave up on the team. The guy who's supposed to be coaching you just left you guys. This is why I do question how much of it was on Akili Smith. The Bengals 0-3 are reeling at this point. In their first 3 games, they have been outscored 7-74. That's why I told you to remember the 7. They have not scored a single point, let alone a touchdown, since week 1, and even then they did it 1 time. The Bengals go on to lose the next 3 games. At this point, they're 0-6. Smith has thrown less than 200 yards in 5 of these games and less than 100 yards in 3 of the games. Only throwing for 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and being sacked 21 times through 6 games. We're gonna fast forward to week 11 where the Bengals met the Cowboys, where this game is actually known for 2 things. 1, the Bengals punted. Yes, they punted at the Dallas 24. Also, this is the game that Akili Smith finally gets benched. Akili Smith does finish with 68 yards, going 10 of 25, 1 interception, 1 fumble, and another 3 sacks. He has not scored a touchdown since week 5. We're in week 11. And they've also not had a bye week, so there's no in between. They have played 6 steady games, and the man has not thrown a touchdown. The Bengals do go on to lose 23-6. Say what you want about the pieces around you, but sooner or later, you do have to pull the plug. Smith's benching was the beginning of the end for not only his time with the Bengals, but for his career. After the game, offensive lineman Willie Anderson stated, "The passing game really hurt us today, but we can't point the finger at one person." Obviously, a lot of people are pointing the finger at Akili Smith. He just cannot get it done. And if your quarterback can't get it done, obviously your only weapon at this point, which is Corey Dillon, he's just gonna get boxed up. If you remember Steven Jackson from the Rams a few years later, they did the same thing to him. The passing attack was abysmal, so you know what? They're gonna box you in every single game. Coach LeBeau actually made a decision that Scott Mitchell would be taking over the following week. "We think he needs a breather," says Coach LeBeau. "Some time to step back and watch." I mean, it makes sense. Give the kid a breather. He is overwhelmed. I'd be overwhelmed. Wouldn't you be overwhelmed after the performances that you've given, after getting hit as often as you've been getting hit, and the fact that you're not winning? Yeah, take a step back. After a week of riding the bench, the Bengals actually do put Smith back in to go against their rivals, the Steelers. They got stomped on. They lose 28-48. Late into the 3rd quarter, the Bengals had seen enough. Akili Smith gets benched, and unfortunately, Smith goes 10 for 20 for 129 yards, 1 touchdown, but sacked 4 times, including 2 fumbles. The Bengals do shut down Akili Smith after this. The Bengals do finish 4-12. His time in Cincy as a starter is pretty much over. Akili finished his sophomore campaign throwing for 1,253 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 10 fumbles, with a passer rating of 52.9 to go along with 36 sacks. Keep in mind, Akili only started 11 games. Even though the run finished 9th place. Because the Bengals finished 31st, which is dead last because there's not 32 teams yet, they finished with an overall offense of 29. And when I say they're dead last, I mean dead last. For the 2001 season and beyond, John Kitna actually comes in and takes over as the starter, performing admirably. It's honestly a huge step above what Akili Smith was offering the Bengals at the time. I won't stay on this topic too much because I feel like it doesn't add really a whole lot, but also in 2001, Akili Smith did get arrested for a DUI. I don't know how much of an impact it made with the Bengals, because I feel personally like the Bengals were already done with him. If they were ever planning on trading him or anything like that, I feel like that probably could have been a reason why people didn't want to bite for him. Over the next 2 years, he only makes another 2 starts, and in 2003, his tenure with the Bengals does come to an end. He did try out for Green Bay, but unfortunately did not make the final roster. So at this point, he does take his talents to Europe and plays for the Stampeders. He does okay. He actually doesn't do that bad. He actually sticks around for a little while. He was still playing football at a professional level, so you got to give the man credit for not giving up. In 2007, he does get cut by the Stampeders of the CFL, ago, and subsequently does retire from the game 8 years removed from being the 3rd overall draft pick. So where did it all go wrong? How much of it is actually on Akili Smith? Well, if you look back at some of these games, almost at an instant, like take the game against Baltimore, for example, where they got shellacked 37-0. In multiple plays, not only was Akili Smith already dealing with Raven defenders in his face within half a second, but so was the running game. A lot of these things, I mean, there's just nothing there's nothing Peyton Manning could have done in that situation. And for a young quarterback to be put in that situation, it's a lot of pressure. Not everyone is going to work themselves out of the atrocity that was the Bengals of the 90s. It doesn't help that your coach quits on you too at the beginning of the year. It doesn't help that you do have a contract dispute to start off your rookie year. It doesn't help that your team is just overall bad. Some quarterbacks, despite everything being lackluster around them, can make them work. He was still underdeveloped. He still needed some time to develop. Even though he didn't start the campaign in 1999, I don't think he was ready until at the very least the next season. And Akili Smith himself has gone on record, and I'm paraphrasing here, blame me all you want, it's not all my fault. He does blame the Bengals, and after doing a lot of research, it's hard to blame them just from their track record, especially in the 90s. Even Carson Palmer, somebody who is a phenomenal quarterback, rather retire than play with the Cincinnati Bengals. Overall, I personally don't think Akili Smith deserved a lot of the blame that he got. Yes, he was a bust. I will say he was a bust because at the end of the day, you were a high draft pick and it didn't work out for one reason or another. You were automatically labeled a bust. At the same time, do not believe it was all his fault. Almost any quarterback in the right situation could be great. Ryan Tannehill, mediocre quarterback in Miami, in the right situation in Tennessee, top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying Akili Smith would have been a top 10 quarterback, but he sure as hell could have probably stayed in the league longer than like 6 years. The blame goes on both sides. I understand the frustration from Akili's standpoint because he has been very outspoken about his time in Cincinnati. But from a business standpoint in Cincinnati, we brought you in so you help us win games. You didn't do that. You didn't even score a touchdown for about 6-7 weeks straight. And this is already in your sophomore campaign. Yes, he was a draft bust, but at the same time, I'm actually on the side of what could have been had he had time to actually develop. If you actually sat him for a whole year, you could have left Jeff Blake in there for a year. Honestly, I'm a believer that the game against the Browns, his first game, it could have developed into something more, but at the end of the day, we'll never know. Overall, Akili Smith finished with a 3-14 record, throwing 5 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 59 sacks, and too many fumbles to count. At the end of the day, Akili Smith did have a passion for this game. Once he retired in 2007, he did take the job as quarterbacks coach for his community college Grossmont team. In 2010, he did join the University of California as a graduate assistant. And in 2012, became the quarterbacks coach for the St. Augustine High School team in San Diego. And as late as 2020, he was hired into the coaching staff at Marantha High School in his hometown of San Diego. As late as 2020, he was still involved in football. So he was still doing what he loved, and it does seem overall like he is happy where he's at. He's come to grips with his time in the NFL. He does wish it could have been better, but there's always what ifs. What if I was 6'2"? You know, could I have made the football league? I don't know.
Nope.
I think so. But there you have it, guys. That is the underwhelming and unfortunate career of Akili Smith, and I really do hope that you guys enjoyed. This is my first time ever trying anything like this. Like I said in the beginning, I do hope that you guys enjoy it, and if you have any feedback for me, definitely let me know in the comments, or if you have someone that you want me to focus on next, I can definitely work on that as well. This is something that I'd want to do ideally maybe even once a month, but if you guys do really love it, maybe I can do it maybe once every 2 weeks. So I really do hope you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and hit that like, hit that subscribe button, as there was a lot of time and effort put on it, and it would mean so much if you guys would drop a like or drop a subscribe if you have not already. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Shaboy! Now, moving away from Akili real quick, we need to focus on the team that drafted him. Yes, the Bengals. Okay, fuck. Akili does get sacked 31 times. And it was Jeff Blake as the starting quarterback to... Akili Smith returning from an ankle injury, but not again. And again...